In 1980, Peck International was a struggling little textile company that nobody cared about. 10 years later, it was a FTSE 100 giant. 17,000 employees, operations across 3 continents, one of the fastest growing companies in British history. And then, it was gone. 1.3 billion pounds in debt. Investors wiped out. And the man who built it all fled the country. This is the story of Asil Nadir, the tycoon who didn't just run his empire into the ground, he robbed it. Asil Nadir was Turkish Cypriot, ambitious, charismatic, and very, very good at making people believe in him. When he took control of Peck in the early 1980s, the company was basically a shell, small, unremarkable, the kind of business no one writes about. Nadir changed that fast. He went on an acquisition spree, buying businesses in food, electronics, agriculture, fruit plantations in Northern Cyprus, consumer electronics brands, packaging operations. If it looked like growth, Nadir bought it. And the stock? It exploded. Peck shares rose something like 10,000% through the 1980s. That's not a typo. Investors were calling Nadir a genius. The press loved him. The city of London loved him. He was celebrated as a self-made visionary, a man who turned nothing into something extraordinary. The problem was, a lot of it was nothing. Behind the glossy acquisitions and soaring share prices, something darker was happening inside Peck. Money was quietly moving, not toward the business, away from it, into companies that Nadir personally controlled. Offshore, hidden, gone. The accounts looked healthy on the surface, but the debts were piling up in places no one was looking. This is the oldest trick in corporate fraud. Make the front of the building look impressive, while everything behind it is rotting. By 1990, investigators started asking questions. The Serious Fraud Office came knocking, and the moment scrutiny arrived, the whole thing started to collapse. In October 1990, Peck entered administration. 1.3 billion pounds in debt. Thousands of employees, people who had built careers at this company, suddenly facing uncertainty. Investors who had trusted Nadir, who had believed the numbers, who had bought the story, wiped out. And Nadir himself? He was out on bail when facing fraud charges when he made a decision that told you everything you needed to know about the man. He ran. In 1993, Asil Nadir boarded a private jet to Northern Cyprus, a territory that had no extradition treaty with the UK. Untouchable, safe, living in a place British courts couldn't reach. For nearly 2 decades, he stayed there. Here's the twist most people don't know. In 2010, 17 years later, Nadir voluntarily returned to the UK. Why? He claimed he wanted to clear his name, to finally face trial and prove his innocence. It didn't go the way he planned. In 2012, Asil Nadir was convicted of stealing 29 million pounds from Peck International, sentenced to 10 years in prison. The celebrated tycoon, the genius the city once cheered for, convicted, disgraced, jailed. The Peck collapse is one of the most important corporate fraud cases in British history, and yet most people have never heard of it. Here's why it matters. The fraud worked because the growth was real enough to be believable. Nadir wasn't selling a product that didn't exist. He was running a real company and stealing from it at the same time. That combination of legitimacy and deception is exactly what makes financial fraud so hard to detect until it's too late. By the time the Serious Fraud Office started pulling at the threads, billions had already vanished. Investors don't just lose money in these collapses. They lose trust. They lose retirement savings. They lose the years they spent believing in someone who never deserved it. Asil Nadir built an empire. Then he robbed it blind and called himself a genius the whole time. Classic arc: genius, idol, criminal. If you want more stories like this, corporate collapses, financial frauds, empires that fell, subscribe. New episode every week.